Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? I hope, as you see, I am, you're getting into the Purim spirit. Tomorrow night is Purim, and we read the Megillah. And Friday is Purim. And what do? We dress up, we wear masks, we wear costumes. In fact, as I like saying, last year Purim, we all put our masks on. And hopefully this year we'll start taking them off because we haven't taken them off since. And we're not starting yet, but we're getting there. So here I am starting to dress up and choose what I'm going to be wearing as we get to celebrate Purim. But I wanted to speak to you first. I have a visitor here. Yeah. A costume? You want to say hi to everyone? Anyways, so I wanted to tell you a Torah thought and connect it to Purim. So this past Shabbos in Shul, we read, besides the portion of Teruma, we read the portion of Titzaveh, which is, the portion of Amalek, which is a biblical commandment that we read every year, the Shabbos before Purim, to remember what Amalek did to the Jewish people when they left Egypt and they tried to annihilate us. We read it again Friday morning in Shul. And in fact, it's a biblical commandment to hear it every year. And therefore, those who didn't hear it on Shabbos, always make sure to come Friday morning on Purim to hear the special commandment. And Amalek doesn't just mean the ancient Amalek in the time when the Jews left Egypt. But first of all, we know Haman. Haman was a descendant of Amalek. And that's why we read it around Purim, the Shabbos before and on the Purim day, to remember that in every generation there exists Amalek. And in every generation there exist those who want to annihilate the Jewish people. But what I want to tell you about some words we read here. But before that, I want to preface it. I read this article online about this 90-year-old Jew. His name was Eric Schwam. And he passed away in December, a wealthy philanthropist. And he left the bulk of his money to a little town in the south of France called Le Chambon-sur-Lyon. It's a tiny little town with literally 2,500 people who live there. And we're not sure exactly how much money, but they estimate it to be about 2 million euro, which is $2.4 million, which is literally almost $1,000 per each person who lives in this little town of Le Chambon-sur-Lyon. Why did he leave it to them? And the reason is because his family came when they were running away from the Nazis. He lives in Austria, but when they were running away from the Nazis in 1943, they came to this town. And upon the instructions of the mayor asked the citizens to hide the Jewish people to hide the Jewish people from the French who were collaborating with the Nazis. And this family, Eric Schwam and his whole family, was hidden in a school where they remained till 1950, and they were saved from the Nazis. And the money he donated will be used for scholarships to help students. Now think about it. 80 years after the Holocaust almost, this man didn't forget what this town did to him to save him, literally, from annihilation, from Amalek of the times. Now, in the portion we read on Shabbos, and we're going to read again on Purim, Zachor asher asa lecha Amalek, don't forget what Amalek did to us. It says, Zachor al tishkach, remember, don't forget. Seems repetitive, right? Why should I? Of course, if I remember, I won't forget. What's the double wording? And the answer is a very moving one. When a tragedy happens to us, when Amalek comes, when there's destruction, when there's hate, or when in our own lives we're sick, we tend to remember the destruction. We tend to remember the hate. We tend to remember the murder, the persecution. But we forget to remember those kind and brave people who went against everything inherent in saving their own lives and risked their lives to save others. Think about if you get sick and you have to be quiet. Think about if you end up sick and you're in the hospital and you go through a terrible illness And after the illness, you can remember. Our memory chooses to either remember that traumatic experience of how sick we were, or we can choose to remember the nurse that was so kind and sensitive when she had to take care of us and give us a shot, or when she had to change us to make sure we were as comfortable as possible. Or we could choose to remember the doctor who nurtured us. Or we could choose to remember the medicine. You see? So what the Torah is warning us is, Zachor al tishkach. When you remember, don't just remember the devastation, the Amalek, the hate, which we have to, but also remember the kindness, the angels, those Sugihara, Schindlers, and so many others like them. And this is in every aspect of our life. We could choose, our memory could choose to form the memory of the devastation, of the hardship, of the challenge, of the struggle, or we could choose to remember those angels and those miracles and those special moments within the devastation. And that's why the Torah commands us, Zachor al tishkach, remember, don't forget. And this is what Eric Schwam did 78 years after he was miraculously saved by this amazing mayor in this small town of 2,500 Shambon. He went and donated his fortune to help this town, to show them that he didn't forget what they did to him. And that's the message I want to give you as we get ready to celebrate Purim and we get ready to take off our masks after a year of devastation, of challenge. And there's so much sadness to remember. We just passed the terrible milestone of 500,000 Americans who lost their lives to this pandemic. We were locked in our homes. So many people lost their jobs. They lost their sense of community. They were lonely. But don't only remember that. When we come out of this, remember the angels, the kind people, the first responders, the people in the community who went out of their way to help others, to give, to care, the Shabbos packages we send, the amazing community that rallied around each other, and the miraculous vaccine. Think about it. March 1st will be 1 year since the Biogen infamous conference here in Boston. And look where we are with vaccines that are 99% successful. Don't forget these things. Zachor, remember the devastation, but al tishkach, don't forget all the powerful and beautiful angels throughout it all and the gifts that God sent us. Have a happy Purim. Make sure to celebrate in every way you could. We're putting up a tent without sides, with heat, so people could celebrate and remember Purim. And remember that last year was the last thing we had before we went into lockdown, was a Purim party. We had 200 people. Miraculously, no one got sick. It was before we knew anything. And this year, we're going to start celebrating again. Hopefully soon we'll take off our masks and we'll not only remember the devastation, but we'll remember all the miracles and all the celebrations and all the angels in our life. Happy Purim.
Now, have the quarterback.